April 7, 1943. 1:15 p.m. 14,000 feet above the Solomon Sea. The sun burns white against the canopy glass. Salt spray from the ocean below evaporates into mist. 22-year-old First Lieutenant James Swett grips the control stick of his F4F Wildcat fighter. His palms sweat inside leather gloves. This is his first combat mission ever. 70 miles ahead, through scattered clouds, a formation breaks the horizon. At first, they're specks. Black dots against blue sky. Then the dots take shape. Val dive bombers. Aichi D-3A1S. 14 of them. Fat bellies loaded with 550-pound bombs. All headed toward the American transport ships anchored at Tulagi Harbor. Swett's squadron leader crackles through the radio headset. Bandits at 2 o'clock. Count 14 Val dive bombers. No escort. I repeat, no escort. No escort means they're vulnerable. It also means something else. They're desperate. Swett's breath fogs the inside of his oxygen mask. His wingmen peel left. 3 other Wildcats dive toward the formation. But Swett hesitates. Not from fear. From calculation. He stares at the thin ring and post sight mounted just beyond his instrument panel. It looks absurdly simple. A circle. A metal post. Nothing more. Like a child's toy. Like something you'd improvise from wire and a welding torch. The squadron veterans called it the Toothpick. They said it was useless. They said real pilots used instinct, not geometry. They said you needed to feel the shot, not measure it. Swett ignores them. He rolls his Wildcat inverted. Dives hard. The altimeter spins backward. 13,000. 12,000. 11,000. His Pratt & Whitney engine screams. Wind pressure crushes his chest. He lines up the lead bomber in his gunsight ring. The post bisects the Val's tail. Range, 300 yards. Deflection angle, 20 degrees. He squeezes the trigger. 6.50 caliber machine guns erupt. Tracers arc forward. Phosphorus rounds streak orange through the air. The first burst misses. Swett adjusts. Leads more. Fires again. This time, the rounds punch through the Val's engine cowling. White coolant vapor erupts. The bomber shudders. Rolls left. Begins its final dive. No parachute. Time elapsed, 11 seconds. 13 bombers remain. And Swett is just getting started. But there's a problem. A problem no one warned him about. A problem that will push him past exhaustion, past fear, past the edge of what any pilot should endure. He's alone. 6 months earlier. The Solomon Islands campaign is a bloodbath. The Japanese Navy controls the Central Pacific. Their pilots are veterans. Men with 2,000 flight hours. Men who flew over China. Over Pearl Harbor. Over the Philippines. They've mastered deflection shooting. They know how to lead a target. How to calculate closure rate. How to fire at a moving aircraft while pulling 4 GS in a turn. American pilots. Most have 200 hours. Some have less. They arrive at Henderson Field on Guadalcanal with classroom training and hope. Within 2 weeks, 40% are dead. The problem isn't courage. It's geometry. When a fighter attacks a bomber, the bomber doesn't sit still. It maneuvers, dives, turns. A pilot must aim where the target will be, not where it is. This requires 3 calculations happening simultaneously: range estimation, deflection angle, and bullet drop compensation. The human brain, under G-forces, hypoxia, and adrenaline, cannot perform this math reliably. So pilots guess. And guessing kills them. In early 1943, the average American fighter pilot fires 1,200 rounds to score a single kill. That's 4 full loadouts. Most engagements last less than 90 seconds. By the time a pilot realizes his bullets are missing, the enemy is gone. Or worse, behind him. The old gunsight system doesn't help. It's a fixed ring and post design. A metal circle with a post in the center. The pilot must manually estimate the lead. He must imagine where the enemy will be in 2 seconds. He must visualize trajectories while his aircraft vibrates, his vision tunnels, and his inner ear screams from G-load. It's like throwing a baseball at a running target while someone spins you in circles. The brass knows this. They've run the numbers. Fighter Command calculates that for every Japanese bomber destroyed, 3 American fighters are lost. Not because the bombers shoot back, but because pilots waste their ammunition, run out of fuel chasing targets, and crash from exhaustion. The doctrine is clear. Stay in formation. Fire in disciplined bursts. Conserve ammunition. Do not chase. Swett has read the doctrine. He's about to ignore all of it. But first, he has to survive the next 15 minutes. And the sight everyone mocked, that thin ring and post mounted in front of his windscreen, is about to prove its worth in a way no one predicted. Because Swett doesn't just see the sight as a tool. He sees it as a weapon. The veterans told him it was garbage. You can't calculate deflection in combat, they said. Your brain shuts down. You just point and pray. Swett disagreed. He spent weeks studying the sight, memorizing the ring diameter, learning the mil-dot spacing, practicing deflection angles on paper. He measured it. 70 mils across. At 300 yards, that's 21 feet. If a bomber's wingspan is 47 feet, it fills the ring at 134 yards. He didn't guess. He measured. And now, at 11,000 feet, diving toward 13 remaining bombers, he's about to test his theory under fire. That theory is about to rewrite the rules of aerial combat. The innovation didn't come from a manual. It came from a napkin. 3 weeks before the mission, Swett sat in the officers' mess at Henderson Field. Outside, rain hammered the tin roof. The jungle steamed. Inside, pilots played cards, smoked lucky strikes, traded stories about kills and near misses. Swett didn't play cards. He drew diagrams. On a napkin, he sketched 2 aircraft. One moving left, one moving right. He drew lines representing bullet trajectories, curved paths, lead angles. He calculated closure rates. He scribbled equations, trigonometry, basic physics. A veteran pilot, Captain Lou Bauer, leaned over his shoulder. "What's that?" "Deflection math," Swett said. Bauer laughed. "Kid, you can't do math in a dogfight." "Why not?" "Because your brain doesn't work that fast." Swett looked up. "What if it's not about thinking? What if it's about seeing?" Bauer frowned. "What do you mean?" Swett tapped the napkin. "The gunsight ring. It's 70 mils wide. If I know the target's wingspan, I can estimate range. If I know range, I can calculate lead. I don't have to think. I just have to align." Bauer stared at him. "You memorized the ring diameter?" "Yes." "And you're planning to use geometry while pulling GS and dodging tracers?" "Yes." Bauer shook his head. "You're gonna get yourself killed." But Swett didn't see it that way. He saw clarity. Other pilots relied on instinct. Instinct was unreliable. It failed under stress. But geometry didn't fail. Physics didn't fail. If he could see the angle, he could hit the target. The trick was discipline. Don't spray and pray. Don't fire until the geometry aligns. Wait for the ring. Wait for the post. Wait for the moment when math and machine converge. He tested it on training runs, gunnery drills, paper targets towed behind other aircraft. His accuracy improved. 60%, then 70%, then 80%. His instructors noticed. They asked how he was scoring so high. He showed them the napkin. They didn't understand. "Too complicated," one said. "Combat's chaos. You need simplicity." But Swett didn't see it as complicated. He saw it as precise. And precision, he believed, would keep him alive. He was right. But he didn't know how right until April 7th. until he found himself alone, outnumbered, diving toward 13 enemy bombers with a sight everyone called useless. He had 6 guns, 1,800 rounds, and 15 minutes to prove that math beats instinct. The first bomber was already falling. 12 remain. 1:16 p.m. 10,000 feet. Swett pulls out of his dive. His airspeed bleeds off. 320 knots. 290. 250. The Wildcat shudders. He banks hard right. G-forces crush him into the seat. His vision grays at the edges. He tightens his core, forces blood back to his brain. Ahead, the remaining bombers scatter. They've seen him. They know they're under attack. But they don't turn back. Their mission is to hit the transports. They dive toward Tulagi Harbor. Swett picks the second target. A Val on the left flank. Range, 400 yards. Closure rate, 150 knots. He watches it through the gunsight. The bomber fills a third of the ring. Too far. He needs 200 yards. He pushes the throttle forward. The Pratt & Whitney roars. The Wildcat surges. 300 yards. 250. The bomber grows in the ring. Now half full. Still too far. 200 yards. He fires. The guns hammer. Shell casings tumble past the canopy. Tracers converge on the Val's starboard wing. Fabric tears. Metal buckles. The wing folds upward. The bomber snap rolls right. Inverts. Plummets. Time elapsed, 18 seconds. 11 bombers remain. Swett doesn't celebrate. He's already lining up the third. A Val diving toward the harbor. Steep angle. 60 degrees. Swett rolls inverted again. Follows. Matches the dive angle. The airspeed indicator climbs. 300 knots. 350. 400. The Wildcat vibrates. Control surfaces stiffen. He's approaching the aircraft's red line. The bomber fills the gunsight ring. Range, 150 yards. Too close. He's overtaking too fast. He throttles back. Pops the dive flaps. The Wildcat bucks. Slows. The bomber stabilizes in the ring. Swett fires. This time, the rounds hit the cockpit. Glass shatters. The bomber's nose drops. It accelerates past vertical. Swett pulls out of the dive. 6GS. 7. His vision tunnels. Blood drains from his head. He grunts. Clenches his legs. Fights the G-load. The bomber hits the water. A white splash. A black smudge. Then nothing. Time elapsed, 29 seconds. 10 bombers remain. But now Swett has a new problem. He's too low. 2,000 feet. The remaining bombers are above him. Climbing. Heading for cloud cover. He's lost altitude advantage. Lost energy. And his engine temperature is climbing. The Wildcat wasn't designed for prolonged combat. The engine runs hot. The oil temperature gauge creeps toward the red line. He has maybe 3 more minutes before the engine overheats. 3 minutes. 10 bombers. He does the math. 18 seconds per kill. That's 3 minutes total. It's possible. If nothing goes wrong. He pulls back on the stick. Climbs. The Wildcat claws for altitude. 3,000 feet. 4,000. The engine groans. The supercharger whines. He watches the temperature gauge. It's in the red now. But the bombers are ahead. He picks the fourth target. Range, 600 yards. Too far. He closes. 500 yards. 400. The bomber sees him. It jinks left. Swett compensates. Leads the turn. Waits for the geometry to align. The bomber fills the ring. He fires. The rounds walk up the fuselage. From tail to cockpit. Sparks erupt. The bomber's canopy explodes. The aircraft shudders. Rolls onto its back. Falls. Time elapsed, 47 seconds. 9 bombers remain. Swett's arms ache. His neck burns from the G-forces. His vision swims. But he doesn't stop. He climbs higher. Picks the 5th target. A Val breaking right. Hard turn. 4GS. Swett follows. Matches the turn. The gun sight drifts. He corrects. Leads more. Fires. The bomber's tail disintegrates. Control surfaces vanish. The aircraft tumbles. No recovery. It spirals into the sea. Time elapsed. 1 minute, 12 seconds. 8 bombers remain. And Swett's ammunition is running low. He has maybe 600 rounds left. That's 10 seconds of fire. 2 more kills. Maybe 3 if he's precise. But 8 bombers remain. He'll have to be perfect. Before this mission, no one believed in Swett's method. The squadron veterans had seen too many rookies arrive with theories, with new tactics, with ideas that looked brilliant on paper and fatal in practice. Combat wasn't a classroom. It wasn't trigonometry. It was chaos. And chaos killed theorists. When Swett first explained his gunsight technique, the reaction was polite dismissal. "Interesting," his flight instructor said. "But you're overthinking it." When he showed them his accuracy scores in training, they nodded. Training's different. Real combat. You'll panic. You'll spray. Everyone does. When he insisted geometry could work under pressure, they stopped being polite. "Listen, kid," one veteran told him. "I've been flying combat for 8 months. You know how many pilots I've seen try fancy techniques? 12. You know how many are still alive? 2. And they stopped doing fancy shit real fast." The message was clear: conform or die. But Swett couldn't conform. Not because he was arrogant. Because he'd studied the casualty reports. He'd read after-action debriefs. He'd analyzed what killed pilots. And the pattern was obvious. Pilots who sprayed their ammunition died. Pilots who chased targets too long died. Pilots who fired from the wrong range died. Discipline saved lives. Precision saved lives. But convincing others was impossible. They'd been trained differently. They'd learned to trust their gut. To react instinctively. To feel the shot. Swett didn't feel the shot. He calculated it. And that made him an outsider. In the ready room, other pilots talked about their kills in visceral terms. "I got right on his 6 and hammered him. I just knew when to fire. I could feel it." Swett stayed quiet. He sketched diagrams, reviewed gunsight mathematics, memorized deflection tables. They thought he was strange. They didn't know he was right. But even after this mission, even after April 7th, the resistance wouldn't end. Because Swett's method required something most pilots couldn't give: patience. His technique demanded discipline. Waiting for geometry to align meant accepting moments of vulnerability. It meant not firing even when instinct screamed to shoot. It meant trusting math over adrenaline. Most pilots couldn't do it. They'd see an enemy aircraft. Their finger would twitch on the trigger. They'd fire too early. Waste ammunition. Swett's method worked for him because he had the discipline to wait. To trust the sight. To let the geometry settle before committing. But not everyone could learn that. After this mission, word would spread. Other pilots would ask him to explain. He'd show them the ring, the mil-dot spacing, the deflection calculations. Some would understand. Most would nod politely and revert to instinct. Because instinct felt safer, felt more natural, even when it killed them. But on April 7th, none of that mattered. Because Swett wasn't thinking about other pilots. He was thinking about the 8 bombers still in the sky. About the 600 rounds left in his guns. About the engine temperature gauge buried in the red zone. He had maybe 90 seconds before the engine seized. 8 bombers. 90 seconds. He picked the 6th target. And something was watching him. From the harbor below. From the transport ships. From the anti-aircraft batteries. Every American gunner within 10 miles had stopped firing. They were watching a single Wildcat tear through an enemy formation. Watching bombers fall like leaves. Watching something they'd never seen before. One pilot. One aircraft. Rewriting the rules in real time. And the man who would validate everything was about to hear the radio transmission. 1:18 p.m. Tulagi Harbor. Fighter Command Post. Major Joseph Foss stands on the deck of a transport ship. He's the squadron commander. Medal of Honor recipient. 26 confirmed kills. He's seen everything. But he's never seen this. Through binoculars, he watches a lone Wildcat weaving through bomber formations. Watches bombers explode. Tumble. Crash. He counts the splashes. 5, 6, 7. One pilot. 7 kills. In under 3 minutes. He grabs the radio handset. Who's up there? The controller checks the flight log. Swett. First Lieutenant James Swett. First combat mission. Foss lowers the binoculars. Say again. First combat mission, sir. Foss stares at the sky. This isn't possible. Rookie pilots don't survive their first engagement. They don't score kills. They certainly don't obliterate enemy formations solo. He keys the radio. Swett, this is Foss. Status. Static. Then Swett's voice. Controlled. Engaged. Ammunition low. Engine overheating. How many kills? 7 confirmed. 3 bombers remaining. Foss does the math. Swett's been airborne for 4 minutes. 7 kills. That's 1 kill every 34 seconds. It's the highest kill rate Foss has ever witnessed. Swett, break off. Your Winchester. RTB. Negative. Still have ammunition. You're overheating. Your engine's gonna seize. Understood. Swett doesn't break off. He climbs. Pursues the remaining bombers. They're fleeing now. Full throttle. Heading for clouds. Foss watches through the binoculars. The Wildcat closes on the 8th bomber. Fires. Short burst. The bomber's engine erupts. Flames trail from the cowling. The aircraft noses over. Falls. 8 kills. Swett climbs higher. Locks onto the 9th bomber. This one's diving. Evasive. Swett follows. Inverts. Matches the dive. Closes to 100 yards. Fires. The bomber's wing separates. The aircraft cartwheels. Disintegrates. 9 kills. 1 bomber remains. But Swett's Wildcat is dying. Black smoke pours from the engine. The propeller windmills. Stops. The engine has seized. Swett's flying a glider now. He has maybe 30 seconds before he stalls. He lines up the final bomber. Range. 300 yards. No power. Airspeed bleeding. 180 knots. 160. 140. The Wildcat shudders. On the edge of a stall. Swett fires his last burst. The rounds hit. The bomber's tail shreds. The aircraft snap rolls. Plummets. 10 kills. No. Wait. Foss counts the splashes again. 9. Only 9 bombers went down. The 10th bomber escapes. Limps toward the horizon. Trailing smoke. Damaged. But alive. Swett's engine is dead. He's at 6,000 feet. Gliding. He keys the radio. Foss, I'm going in. Understood. Ditch near the harbor. We'll pick you up. Swett doesn't respond. He's too busy flying. The Wildcat glides like a brick. He has maybe 2 minutes before he hits the water. He lowers the flaps. Dumps fuel. Prepares for water landing. The ocean rushes up. He pulls back on the stick. Flares. The Wildcat's belly hits the water. Hard. The canopy shatters. Salt water floods the cockpit. Swett unbuckles. Kicks open the canopy. Swims clear. The Wildcat sinks. Bubbles erupt. Then silence. A patrol boat speeds toward him. Pulls him aboard. He's bleeding. Exhausted. half drowned, but alive. Foss is waiting when the boat docks. He pulls Swett aside, looks him in the eye. "How did you do that?" Swett blinks. Water drips from his hair. "Do what?" "9 kills. First mission." "How?" Swett pauses, then reaches into his waterlogged pocket, pulls out a folded napkin, hands it to Foss. Foss unfolds it, sees the diagrams, the equations, the deflection angles. He looks up. "You calculated it?" "Yes, sir." Foss stares at the napkin, then at Swett, then back at the napkin. "Show me everything." And in that moment, everything changed. 3 days later, every fighter pilot at Henderson Field attends a briefing. Swett stands at the front, exhausted, bandaged, holding a piece of chalk. Behind him, a blackboard covered in diagrams. Ring dimensions, deflection angles, lead calculations. The room is silent. Foss speaks first. Lieutenant Swett scored 9 confirmed kills on his first combat mission. He did it using a mathematical approach to deflection shooting. He's going to explain it. You're going to learn it. The veterans don't laugh this time. They lean forward. Swett explains the gunsight, the ring diameter, the mil-dot spacing, how to estimate range, how to calculate lead, how to wait for geometry instead of relying on instinct. One pilot raises his hand. "What if there's no time to calculate?" "Then don't shoot," Swett says. "Wasted ammunition kills you. Precision keeps you alive." Another pilot asks, "What about G-forces? What about panic?" "The sight doesn't panic," Swett says. "You train until the geometry becomes automatic. You don't think. You see." The briefing lasts 2 hours. By the end, every pilot has copied the diagrams, memorized the ring dimensions, agreed to practice. Within 2 weeks, the squadron's hit rate increases by 40%. Pilots who previously needed 1,200 rounds per kill now need 400. They waste less ammunition, stay in fights longer, come home alive. Other squadrons hear about it. They request transfers. They want to learn Swett's method. Fighter Command takes notice. They standardize the training, incorporate deflection mathematics into gunnery school. By mid-1943, the doctrine has changed. New pilots arrive at Guadalcanal with napkins covered in equations, with ring dimensions memorized, with discipline drilled into them. The kill rate skyrockets. American pilots begin outperforming Japanese veterans, not because they're more experienced, because they're more precise. Swett flies 61 more combat missions. He scores 16 total kills, survives the war, receives the Medal of Honor for April 7th. But the legacy isn't the medal. It's the pilots who come after him, the ones who learn his method, who survive because they waited for the geometry, who trusted math over instinct. By 1944, the technique spreads to Europe. P-47 Thunderbolt pilots use it against German fighters. P-51 Mustang pilots use it on bomber escort missions. The hit rate doubles again. By 1945, it's standard doctrine. Every fighter pilot in the U.S. military learns deflection shooting, learns to trust the sight, learns to calculate instead of guess. Korea, Vietnam. Every jet pilot inherits the technique. It evolves, becomes radar-assisted, computer-guided. But the core principle remains: precision beats instinct. And it started with a napkin, with a quiet lieutenant who refused to guess, who saw geometry where others saw chaos. Veterans from Swett's squadron would later recall his methodical approach. One pilot, Captain Robert Anderson, wrote in his memoir, "Swett didn't fly like the rest of us. He flew like a mathematician. Every move was deliberate. Every burst was calculated. We thought he was overthinking it. Turns out, we were underthinking it." But despite the impact, despite the lives saved, Despite changing aerial combat doctrine forever, most people never learned Swett's name. They knew the Medal of Honor recipient, the ace pilot, the man who shot down 7, later confirmed as 7, not 9, bombers in 15 minutes. But they didn't know the napkin, the diagrams, the quiet hours spent memorizing ring dimensions while others played cards. They didn't know the innovation came from patience, from trusting math when instinct failed, from seeing a toothpick sight as a weapon instead of a toy. James Swett lived to be 91 years old. He died in 2009, buried at Riverside National Cemetery in California. Full military honors, a quiet ceremony, family and a few surviving squadron mates. Near the end of his life, someone asked him about April 7th, about the 7 bombers, about the moment that made him a legend. He didn't talk about the kills. He didn't talk about the Medal of Honor. He talked about the napkin. "I just wanted to bring my boys home," he said. "I figured if I could show them how to shoot accurately, maybe they'd waste less ammunition. Maybe they'd have enough left to survive the next engagement." That's all it was. Math, discipline, patience. He paused, looked out the window. People think aerial combat is about bravery. It's not. It's about geometry. You either understand the angles, or you die. Swett's method saved thousands of lives, not just on April 7th, but for decades afterward. Every pilot who learned deflection shooting, every squadron that adopted disciplined gunnery, every ace who trusted precision over instinct, they owed it to a napkin, to a lieutenant who saw a toothpick sight and imagined possibility. The Wildcat he flew that day? It's at the bottom of the Solomon Sea, resting at 1,200 feet, untouched, undiscovered, a steel coffin holding the memory of 15 minutes that changed warfare forever. But the idea survives. In every gunsight, every targeting system, every pilot who waits for the geometry to align before pulling the trigger. Swett didn't invent deflection shooting, but he proved it worked. He proved that discipline beats instinct, that patience beats aggression, that a quiet lieutenant with a napkin can rewrite doctrine. And he proved that innovation doesn't come from genius. It comes from refusing to accept the way things have always been done. If this story moved you, hit like. Share where you're watching from in the comments. You're helping keep history alive. You're honoring the quiet innovators who changed the world without headlines, who saved lives without recognition. And maybe, just maybe, you'll remember that the next time someone mocks your toothpick idea. Because sometimes, the mockery ends when the impossible happens.